Today, we've got some amazing experts on the line. So we've got Lisa Schwartz, she's the CEO of the ITSM Academy. We've got Sammy Callio, he's the CEO of Happy Signals. And we've got myself, Brianne Creelman. I'm the director of Thirdera Digital, or I might refer to it as 3D. Got a great agenda today. So I just told you a little bit about our webinar. We're going to start with an introduction to experience, which is going to be led by Lisa. Then we're going to talk to Sammy about happiness as a business case. And then we'll round out the session with myself. And I'm going to talk about a new era of experience. Like I mentioned, we're going to have some time at the end for some questions. And throughout the webinar today, we're going to have some polls pop up. So please be ready to engage with us on that. All right, so Lisa, it's your turn. We're going to talk about the introduction to experience.
Thanks, Bray. So we're going to just to try to get to know a little bit about the folks that are on the call with us today. We just thought this would be kind of an interesting polling question to find out if you've got an active customer experience program or an employee experience initiative, or perhaps both. So as that poll is up, Bree, you can go ahead and take me to the next slide and I'll kind of start going. You know, I first heard about digital experience, employee experience in terms of IT in November of 2018. And my very first thought, a little bit about my background. So started ITSM Academy 18 years ago. And so have been very involved in service management, a lot around ITIL, DevOps, other things like that for a really long time. I got into ITIL originally because my boss's boss said, well, somebody was asking about service level agreements. And Bruce said, that's the Lisa's always talking about. And I became the director of service management for the organization that I was working at. So, you know, like so many people in IT, like so many people in IT service management really fell into it. You know, one of the things that I love about what we do at the Academy, what we do as a service management industry is help people go home earlier, quicker, better, faster, right? So when I first heard this concept of experience level agreement, I thought, well, I love the idea, but we're very data driven. And how do we get to how somebody feels, right? Because we know, and I think we could probably shut down the poll now. But, you know, people, and this is a quote that's often attributed to Maya Angelou, but actually, because I'm a geek and a researchaholic, I found out that it is not. But I think it's just so very true. Every interaction that we have, we sort of forget what people said, we forget what they did, but we don't forget how people made us feel. And so, you know, taking that concept, which sounds really happy, hippie, then to see it start to emerge on the Gartner hype cycle, which, you know, since 2018, it started not on the hype cycle. Oh, Brie, can you take us forward? Sorry. Not on the hype cycle. And then over the last 3 hype cycles that it's been on, we have seen it continue to rise. And it is now on a 5 to 10 year plateau. So, you know, as I used to say to people about ITIL in the late 90s, early 2000s, you know, hey, do me a favor, get out a piece of paper and a pen, write down my name, today's date, and ITIL. Now I get to say, and XLA, because you're going to hear about it for the rest of your career. And frankly, I kind of want credit for it because that's the way I roll. So we're seeing, and we have so many, what has happened during this transition, work from home, and the experience was on the rise anyway, you know, for a million different reasons. But now with this, you know, the great resignation and everything that's happening in the workspace now, there is so much concrete data that shows experience is one of the most important success factors in an organization today. And it's pretty exciting for me because, again, ITSM Academy, we've done IT service management focused stuff for a really long time. I remember going to my first knowledge conference however many years ago, and they started talking about, you know, everything as a service. And I think that this move toward experience is finally starting to bridge the gap between the customer experience programs that people have, the HR programs that organizations have, because, and it hasn't been for a long time, but it's not IT's here and the business is here, the way that so many people talk about it. We are human beings that are working toward a goal together in an organization. And so this is a pretty concrete way that we're finally seeing the emergence of a better communication, so many things. So, why does experience matter? Well, we know this, but it shapes people's opinions, their decisions, their actions. We know that it is cumulative. So we can have one interaction and another interaction. One could be good, one could be not so good. But when I think of a service provider, whether it's a service provider in my home life or my work life, I have I said it today, having a conversation with someone about healthcare. They said, well, was it at Tenet? And I kind of went, oh, Tenet, no offense to hopefully the tennis there. And then he said, no, it was at Mayo. And I said, oh, Mayo, like Mayo. Even the way that I said the name of the company, that is built around all of my experiences, whether it is their marketing, my friends who have had experiences, things that I've read completely unrelated, maybe in business cases. So we build up our opinions of organizations and services, and that is a very cumulative experience. And it has consequences, for a lot of whether it's an internal or external service provider. I can decide to leave. If I'm an employee and I feel like I'm not being heard, I know that there is a better digital experience. It's easier to work on the systems at the company across the street. I may leave. If I'm a consumer, I may change my providers. But so we take the importance of this experience, and then we talk about, how do I know, how can I quantify what builds to an experience? Because it is all about the outcomes. It's not about the steps in the process, right? So you've got a car, and my car needs to be serviced. So I had purchased it from a dealership about 45 minutes away. When I went to that dealership, they told me that it was going to be, I had to make an appointment. They made it very difficult to do business with them. So I ended up having a small problem. I drove it to the same, the dealership kind of around the corner, and they were fantastic. They were like, come on in, Lisa, we'll fix you right away. It was none of the bureaucracy and the process that made it difficult, but in the outcome, it's going to be the same, because I do know that dealership has really strict ways in which it is going to fix or service my vehicle. So that gives me all kinds of options. And to the point that perception really is reality. I think maybe by a show of hands, who here has heard of the term a watermelon dashboard? Are you guys familiar with that? So if there are hands being raised, I can't see it. So Bree, let me know what happens there. Okay. So, in a very sort of service management perspective, we've really talked about, and we think about service level agreements, and they are very important. They continue to be important. Please understand that. But we were talking about satisfaction, and satisfaction is really based on outputs. We're really doing what we're supposed to do. We're meeting our SLA, we're meeting our KPIs, we're meeting our OKRs, whatever they are. And the methods that we use to sort of gather that data and build that as a resource internally is, things we're all super familiar with. The customer satisfaction survey, things like first call resolution. I could read through these bullets. I don't need to, but those are things that probably everyone on this call is really very familiar with. And when we talk about experience, we're talking more about the outcome, doing what really matters, because, going back to the watermelon dashboard, you can have everything green. I walk in and all my dashboards look fantastic, but I know if I walk outside my office and I start, God forbid, talking to the people who work at the organization, that they're not actually happy. And a lot of that has to do with, SLAs are so tied into our service providers, and we've been really don't like this expression, but gaming the system for a really long time because, it behooves us to have great response time, to have great results on our SLAs and our KPIs. But are our customers happy? Are our employees happy? Are our teams happy? Are they delighted? Maybe not. So how do we start looking at the hippy dippy stuff and how do we get to those numbers? Well, here's one way to look at it. Here we are. Mom and dad, we're going to be IT. Okay. And we love this little mobile. I mean, come on, is that not the cutest thing? There's a little pig, there's a little elephant. But have we considered what the baby's experience is? I mean, I feel like I just pregnant pause there, pun intended, because are we looking at it from that perspective? Are we changing the way that we look at things so the way we look at things can change? So this is so I'm going to tell you guys a quick little story because I want to sort of wrap it up to get to the point where there is a way. There is a way to start building internal programs. There is a way to sort of get to the data that feels really fuzzy logic at this point. But before I do this, so when my husband and I very first started dating, he said, and we have been very, very fortunate. We have gotten to travel kind of around the world. And he had said to me, where would you like to go? And really, really high on my list was, I want to take a cruise to Alaska. And his immediate response was, baby, that's an old people trip. Okay, will you take, and then we hadn't been dating long either. I said, will you take me for my 50th birthday? He said, of course I will. I don't even want to tell you guys how many years ago now we've done that trip. So now I started to get a little bit worried about it because for 23 years, we were planning that trip. And often, dynamic of our relationship, I'm sort of the planner and the doer of things. And so Matt took over the whole planning of the trip for me. And I stayed very uninvolved in the process of planning, which I think in the end was a really great, it was a really great thing. We had an awesome trip, punchline, ruining my own story. But he took over all the planning and all the everything. So I told him, I don't even want to know. I don't want to know what, other than the cruise that we're going on. I don't want to know what we're doing, where we're going, like all of our side excursions, So he did all of that. I am a little bit bragging right here, right now, I know, but it was a super amazing trip. On one of the last days and probably one of my most favorite days of my entire life, we went to a wildlife preserve and we spent the entire day with experts. The guy has TV shows, the whole thing. So we spent this entire day with experts and we learned all of this amazing stuff. Again, super geek. And I love to be outside. So this checked all my boxes for me. My husband might actually know me. And toward the very end, the gentleman who was our tour guide said to me, who would like to do this? And I was one of two people in the group of 10 who immediately raised my hand and said, yes, please. And my husband looked at me and said, why would you do that? And I looked at him and said, why would you not? So the question that he asked was, who would like to feed the moose a carrot from their mouth? Now, you have to understand that I had such a great experience throughout that trip. That's a kind of crazy thing to do, even for me. And it wasn't just the experience that we had that day with that provider, but it was the experience I had over the entire 10 days that built me to a place of trust where I was willing to do that. So what we've done, I am also a co-founder of the XLA Collab. The XLA Collab is really pioneering experience level agreements and the experience movement. And you know what, Brie, I should have told you this before, but there really should be a line between the top two sections and the bottom two sections here. Because the X data, those are the XLAs and the XIs are the data that's brand new to us, right? The O data, our operational data, those are SLAs, KPIs. And I'm going through this really quickly. I know in the end, we're going to talk about, we have a 4-hour essence of experience class that's really very focused on this. But the XLA data is the stuff that we understand how to get to. The operational data is the data we understand how to get to. The X data is sort of the new and really interesting pieces. And so, again, lots more information. I know I covered this really quickly. Happy to talk to you guys about it. We're going to give out a couple of free seats in the class toward the end today. So I'm happy to share that out with you guys too. But what I want to do now is I want to pass this over to Sammy, because Sammy and his team are doing some remarkable things with the data that's available to us today in our systems. And so thank you guys very much for spending time with my part today.
Thanks so much, Lisa. I don't think I could do that moose thing. There's no way I would work, my whole face would be gone. So I think what you were mentioning there, a lot of it is trust building too. And I know Sammy's going to talk about that and I'll allude to that later too, but just the trust you need with people. So in that, Sammy, I'll let you share your screen.
Thank you. And thank you, Lisa. Always pleasure to listen to you when presenting. So Sami Kallio, CEO and founder of Happy Signals, and I'm going to talk about why that happiness really has a business case, and also sharing you some data from our customers. So we are a company who has only one focus, and we are helping enterprises to really measure end user experience and start to work in a more end user centric way. So start to do the IT for people. So really focusing on what Lisa talked about, the outcome. That is what we are helping enterprises to really understand what is the outcome, not how we are working in IT and making that efficient, but making it efficient to use the IT tools for those end users and so our customers in service management. So today I'm going to share some data that is based on all our customers. So really data coming from millions of end users. So I believe and hope that will be interesting you guys, and more than happy to share more of that. And you can find more information on our benchmark on our web pages as well. Today in this presentation, I'll be focusing on the IT support services because of what the audience today is. At least most of you are from service management area. But as a company, we do measure everything that enterprise is giving to their end users. And this is SaaS product of measuring and using that data. But today, I'm not going to do any product demos on such. If you want to have someone contact Thirdera, and we are going to do that with you guys. But today I will focus on the data and really showing you why it is interesting and important to focus on the end users. So starting from very, very basic. So how we see what is important in that experience is that it is never only pink heart, even though that is our logo, but that happiness is one part of it. But there is always linked to the productivity of the end users. And sometimes I have been thinking that which one is here. So they do correlate very heavily, but is it because we are making the services productive that makes end users happier? Or is it the other way around? When they are happy, they are also productive. But maybe it is so that when we make it easy for them and them productive, they really are liking what they are consuming from IT. But then going to that business case. So when we have been measuring this whole IT, and we have started to do this 7 years ago, and this lost work time per ticket. So this 2 hours, 50 minutes is lost time per ticket in IT incidents. If this would be lost time in IT request, it would be a bit less, like 10, 15 minutes less. But it is almost 3 hours that lost time per all incidents globally on average. That 3 hours, if we change that to money, that means that it's almost $150. And in that calculation, we are only using 50 euros to be the internal cost of that lost time. And that $132 is definitely bigger amount of money that the company is losing on the business side, that the ticket cost they are paying for outsourced service desk provider. So this is really a number that has been asked from the end users. So how much they are estimating they are losing time. And one incident means 3 hours lost for them. Of course, the service area or channels and so on, they are influencing this lost time, but on average, they are losing 3 hours. And that, as said, is based on millions of feedbacks. And this number is now the last 6 months number. If we continue the benchmark, one of the areas that is really important and interesting to understand if you guys are from a global organization is that people are rating services quite differently in different locations. The culture of the country has really big influence on how they see services and how they are rating them. And the so-called happiness score that we are talking about is always calculated in the way that you can see in the bottom right corner. So we are sharing the scale from 0 to 10 to 3 different areas. 9 and 10 being positive, 7, 8 neutral, under 7 negative. And using the same mathematics that is used in Net Promoter Score, and Net Promoter Score is the one would you recommend. We are not using that phrase because this is internal services that we are talking about. They cannot really choose if they would be working with that support service function or not. And as Lisa said, if they don't want to use that and they're not happy with the IT, they might leave the company. But in that company, they cannot really choose if they are using the support services or not. But the calculation there is the positive percentile amount of positive. So people who rated 9 and 10 minus the percentile amount of under 7. And now those numbers in that map, you can see that Western Europe is really critical compared to about all other countries in the world. You guys in US, you are rating services quite positively. So your average score is 79. The average global average is 76. Canada 74, so little less than the average. Australia 40 and so on. But kind of what these numbers mean is that these are global companies, so they have the same service for all locations. This is only how the culture affects the scoring. Then if we go further, and there would be now time for you guys to use your brains, and this is maybe a kind of a different kind of poll because I have the right answer soon after, because this is now just making you think that what is that one individual factor that from the list that you're going to see is the most important for the end users. So when we are asking people to rate the services, we ask them to say that, okay, you rated the service 9 and 10 in IT incidents. Which of these reasons were influencing you the most? Was it because you learned something, or was it the skills of the agent? Was it the attitude of the agent, speed of service, and so on? So kind of now you can answer this one fast, and let's see how many of you did get the right answer. So now too, you can select many, but in this case, you can only select one in this poll. So hopefully you have already done that because I'm now moving to the right answer. So maybe just seeing the results.
It looks like, can you see the results, Sammy, or I can read them?
Yeah,
out?
I can see the results.
Perfect.
I can move now, then you can keep the results there and I can show you the right results. So, and again, this is millions of people. Speed of service is definitely the biggest one. So 30% of the audience, you were right. Second biggest and the third biggest are both related to the skills of that agent. So attitude of agent is really important. Second is skill. The information about the process is only 13%. You guys thought that that would be the biggest one. It is important, but you cannot win. That doesn't influence the experience so much. It is important, and it is really making people sometimes really unhappy. So if you would look at those people who rated less than 7, then that would have a bit bigger influence there. But it's not enough to get people happy that you inform them that how the process is going. You have to do it fast and with the right attitude. So if the people don't feel that you are really serving them and you're not helping them, that is not having so much influence. So productivity, the proactively services and the process information about process are on the same level. But yes, again, there is a lot of more information on our openly available benchmark about this as well. So if you want to really understand what these mean and what that would maybe mean for your organization as well, please go there and see that. But skills, I think there is quite a biggest difference there. Only one person thought that skills is something that matters, but that really matters. And that is a good jump to the next slide. Also what we do, we measure and help enterprises to understand what kind of employees they are having. And this is here showing that 56% is all employees we are measuring on average are so-called doer profile. And this doer profile is technical capable. So they are fine with IT. They are not afraid of it. And whenever they have an issue with IT, they try to solve it themselves. They Google. And if this guy calls the service desk, please don't ask him, did you put your computer? They definitely have done that. They hate it when IT asks that. And they start a phone call by asking that, please, can I talk to an expert about this and this issue? The opposite from this is the support. It's how they start phone calls like, I'm so bad in IT, just please help me. Doers are the greatest profile when it comes to self-healing tools like service portals and so on. They love to use it. They don't want to contact service desk. They want to fix things on their own. The other profiles that are quite fine with that one are like the prioritizers. They are also very technical, or enough technical that they're not afraid of it. But the only thing, almost the only thing that matters for them is speed. So if the self-service is the fastest way to get things done, they will use it. If phone call is faster, they will use it. So the only prioritizing thing what they are doing when they are using services is thinking that how do I get this fastest fixed. They are not using their own time so much, but if that is the fastest way, they will use it, and so on. But again, there is a ebook about them, these profiles in our web pages as well. But that is something that what we try to do with this one, what I wanted to have this slide today here is that you have in all organizations, you have all these profiles, and they are behavior models for people. And you cannot really think about having one exactly same service and thinking that would make all people happy, because they just are needing so much more kind of a different kind of approach. One example still from this one is the triers. They love to learn. So they are untechnical, but their aim is to get to more technical and understand the techniques more. So if you can give them an experience when they are serving you, you are serving them. If you can help them to understand why you fixed something and what was really fixed, they are more happy. All right, then let's move to the next one. But okay, as you can hear, this is something I'm really passionate about talking about. So let's move to more practical stuff, or even more practical. Now, when it comes to service channels, there are quite a big differences between are you walking or are you using portal, are you using chats, are you using chatbots, are you using phone calls and so on. The most used channel is portal when it comes to IT incidents, and that is 39% is all tickets that we are seeing is from that channel. Even bigger percentage if this would be requests. The sad thing here is that that is the least liked channel in our benchmark. So people on average hate portals, to use kind of a bit blunt language there. But happiness, and okay, then I'm very often asked why that is, and there, for me there are a couple of reasons. First one is the language used. So it's not maybe how the service looks like, but what kind of language you are using. Are you using the right categories so that people understand how to categorize tickets? You're not using idle languages like incidents and requests. Doesn't really tell anything to people. They are problems, even though idle has a different meaning for problem, and so on. So focus on that one when you are doing these renewals with Thirdera. Focus on the languages with Brianna and the team. But the other thing is that it's not only about how you use that portal, it is what happens behind. So sorry, this is a bit more complicated slide, but what this is talking about is how the process behind the scenes is working. So we have noticed that every time that one first agent that is not able to resolve the ticket and it moves to second team, the second agent, the third agent, and so on, every time the happiness of end user is going to drop by 10 points. And that is already important, but even more important is that employee will be estimating they are losing 1.5 hours more time. And 34% is all tickets are bounced around. And now going back to that why portals are hated, the sad fact is that even though ServiceNow would have all the tools, on average what we see is that customers are not yet using it in a way that from portal the ticket would be taken to an expert. Like now the employees are doing all the job. They are describing, categorizing, and then the process behind that is exactly the same that it is in email, or even sadly worse than in email. So on average in our benchmark, we know that in emails there is less reassignments than in portals. So the portal should really have that promise to the audience that if you do all that categorizes, we can solve it faster, and then they would love it. But that for some reason is not yet happening in many cases, because sometimes the focus is only on how the service is looking like and such things like that. But again, my favorite from all our benchmarks is this one. So even though I hate the results in a way, but I love because that is so clearly showing that there is a thing that you can make more out of your service now, and Thirdera guys can definitely help you with this one. So this one here, just to show you that if you have focus on service experience and you really try to and start to do experience management, you can make a difference. So on average, when our customers have started to use our product, their score has been 57. And now the global benchmark average is 76. So a lot better. 10 points in happiness means that you are saving 40 minutes per ticket. So there really is a business case when doing this. And what we mean by experience management really is this whole wheel. So kind of what I was talking first was all about the measurement, the results there. So what we have learned from people answering the surveys, and that is kind of, I would say, the easy part when it comes to start to do really experience management. We have ready-made surveys with benchmarking everything. So you just take them in use and you start to kind of focus on using that data. But when you start to really do it in your organization, you share it to the right people with business stakeholders, you share it with partners like Thirdera to be making it possible for them to help you really identify those areas and do the right improvements. So I'm really excited to work with Thirdera because I know these guys are really taking it serious, that they can help you guys to really focus on those things that matter. And this really is all what is experience management all about. So yes, measuring, setting those XLAs, what Lisa was talking about, measuring those continuously, that is important, but also really to kind of start to build that trust, sharing the data with partners, starting to trust the data together, starting to say, okay, we can really do a difference here and do some changes to that experience. But maybe that is what I wanted to say today. So handing it to you over, Brianna, so you can explain a little more about the issue.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Sammy. I'm just going to share my screen here. Just give me 1 second. Perfect. Sammy, do you want to let me know if that screen looks right?
We are seeing your own screen. So swap to these displays, and I think then we are seeing the better one.
I'm sorry. I'm having struggles today with my thing. I'm sure some of you saw some of my IMs popping up, and I think it all really relates back to experience. I think we want to think about experience in all different areas when we're sending emails, when we're presenting, but at the end of the day, we're all human and things will happen. And I think it's important to think about the user and be empathetic with me. I'm going to try to get this looking good. Is it still like that, Sammy, or is it just the main screen now?
Yeah, we are seeing the presenter's view.
Sorry, you're
Bri,
seeing...
I'm feeling like a bad friend because I presented for you and you presented for me, and I should have done the same for you.
Let me just share one more time. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. How about now?
Perfect.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the new era of experience. Thanks, Sammy, so much. The word hate is very strong, but I do think you're right. I think sometimes people come to the portal and they really dislike it. So I'm hoping with what we can offer here at Thirdera Digital that users don't have that experience. So again, my name is Brian Krillman. I'm the director of UX UI at Thirdera Digital, and Thirdera Digital is really cool. So we just established a new business unit at Thirdera called Thirdera Digital, and here we're set out to deliver tailored experiences that harness organizational capabilities. So I think what makes us really unique is that we are an in-house UX UI kind of agency idea where we work really closely with our architects, our developers, and our mind is always on ServiceNow. So anything that we're working through when it comes to UX UI, we have ServiceNow in mind. And when we're creating these different pieces, we're always thinking about what can be built on the platform to take it to its full potential. So I wanted to just spend 1 minute on what is good design. So I really like this quote: good design is a plan for arranging elements in such a way as best to accomplish a particular purpose. When we're talking about service portals in particular, every user is going there for an action, and we want to make that action as easy as we can for them. These days, everyone's on their mobile and they're on Amazon and Netflix, and everything is quite intuitive. And so when they log into a service portal, they're really looking for that same experience. I have a couple examples here you'll see on the right about setting your password. Now, I'm sure we've all been through this before where we've been asked to set a password, and you'll see on the left there, someone has typed in a password and right away they get a red alert with an exclamation point that their password has to be 8 characters. Well, something that I think we need to consider always as UX UI designers is it's not the user's fault if they create an error. There's something else there. So having specific guidelines around what you're asking the user to do is really important. So I would say good design is actually the image on the right. So we've identified what the user needs to do in setting their password. And then there's kind of a checkpoint of, okay, they've added a special sign, they've added one number, and it really helps the user feel comfortable. So when they go to set that password, even if they got an alert, they really understand the parameters. I want to talk a little bit about our UX UI deliverables and design approach at Thirdera Digital. So this is something that a lot of great UX designers use, but we've tried to just incorporate a few things that make us unique. So the very first thing that we do is we want to meet the user, we want to be the user, we want to make sure our designs are simple. So it's really important to us at Thirdera Digital that we're not just designing something really cool and crazy that won't work effectively on the platform, but is really engaging to start. The trust that you build with the user is so important. So we really don't want to overthink anything. We want to make it simple and make sure it works. Then we go through testing it, validating it, and making it happen. I'm going to kind of walk through here on my next slide. This is an example of a fictitious e-commerce portal design that we did. It's very similar to one that we have built on the platform. So I wanted to just kind of walk you through how we would get to an end result like this. So come along this journey with me and let's pretend that we're designing a shared service portal for an e-commerce. They're looking for a personalized employee landing page designed to fit each employee journey. And then one thing I wanted to highlight here is a My Team widget where they can quickly search and connect across teams and departments. I really love this slide that Sammy was showing around the different demographics or the different types of users. So you've got the doers, the people that are triers, and they'll click around on lots of different client projects that we have. It's really interesting because we want to come to the client and meet them where they're at in their journey. And it's very rare that they have no portal and no experience. Most of the time we come and they say, we have this portal and only these users use it and these users dislike it. So we make sure to ask a lot of really great questions right at the beginning to make sure we understand where they're at, but to take into consideration all those different demographics and different types of users. So one of the first things we do is we go through what we'd like to call an innovation workshop, where we really understand the user base, we identify their goals, determine their challenges, and like I mentioned, just learn more about the users, content, and the design requirements. We had a great example of this with a school district. So we worked through, and if you think about it, there's teachers at all different technical abilities. So you have the teachers that might be about to retire that really don't like using the computer. And then you have those teachers that are right out of school and they're so eager to use it. And with that case, we also had contractors, we had secretaries, we had janitors. So we really feel this workshop is so important to understand our user base and really identify their goals. Then we work through what's called an exploration workshop, where we explore the user personas. We create things like user flow documents, talk about different scenarios, and go through a content card sorting exercise. So we really want to make sure we not only understand their goals, but the actions, the point of contacts, the problems, and any opportunities. We think it's important to think about not just repeating the past, but where are those bottlenecks now? So a question I always like to ask is, what are you picking up the phone and what question are you answering most? Or what email do you almost have like bookmarked so that you can copy and paste and send it out all the time? So we really like to look at what works, but also what doesn't work, and not just repeating the past with a nice design. Then we work through creating. So there's multiple design workshops. We create mock-ups in all different levels, sometimes low fidelity, sometimes high fidelity, but we like to get as many familiar pieces into that mock-up as quickly as we can. So the user's looking for kind of buckets of information or repeatable patterns, any kind of sprinkles, I always say, we can do to incorporate colors or words that they're already used to, icons that they already have an understanding of. That really helps us gain that user's trust really quickly. What we like to do with this workshop too is create a link that other people can see. So we understand that in some of these workshops, it's hard to find the time to bring everyone together and provide that feedback. So we like to make it so other users or other stakeholders can see and give us that feedback as well. After we design, we go through what's called an interactive workshop. We do a cognitive walkthrough, a development review, and I should say every step of the way before we even show a design to the client, we've worked very closely with our developers and our architects so that we're ensuring what we're designing, what our brains are coming up with is able to be built on the platform. I always like to use the analogy of if you're at a restaurant and you look at the menu and you order something, it's our job to make sure that your order comes in the exact way that you were looking for it. So we like to be really agile in our approach there. If somebody's ordering something or this is what they tell us, we kind of repeat back those expectations. So you're looking for a portal that is this action, is that correct? And then as we build it out and test it with our developers, we're right away getting that feedback. And we find that this interactive workshop really helps with that because ServiceNow has got a lot of acronyms, it's got a lot of different phrases, and to the user, it might not matter if it's an incident or a request. So we want to make sure that we have a full understanding of what we're designing and what we are going to be developing on the platform. Finally, we deliver. So we work through finalizing the design and we create a development package with UI guidelines. So we want to make sure that as close as we can, I won't say pixel by pixel, but as close as we can, we're handing off the design in a way that our developers can really hit the ground running in ServiceNow. We've developed a lot of different widgets that we've almost productized so that we know we can implement and it can be tailored for the client and work right away. So we work closely with our designers or developers throughout, but when it comes to that handoff package, we like to give them as much information as we can. I wanted to just take a quick look at the time. So we've got about 15 minutes left. I know my screen share has not gone well, so I just want to share one more screen quick, and if it works, I'll keep going, and if not, we can jump right into questions. So I think, Sammy, can I bug you again? Do you see my little browser window there?
I do.
Awesome, thanks, Sammy. So this is something else that we like to do. When we're working through the design, we understand it would take a lot of development hours and it might affect the timeline if we were to build this in ServiceNow and then go through the testing. So what we like to create is this interactive mockup that I was referring to, and we like to share this link around so you can really see, okay, when I click, that's the action that's happening. Here you can see in search, we get a lot of questions about search. What's it going to look like if I type in dog? How will the user identify the differences between a knowledge library or a request? And we find that creating these different mockups does a really good job of that. They can also see the different actions if they're taken to another page. Okay, so the user would jump from here to there. We can kind of do different accessibility testing to see that the user is going in the way that we intended. And this is a nice way to show the different widgets that we can tailor using things like content delivery and integrations to show all the information the user would need on the page. In this mockup, I did a little bit of a happy signals plug here. So this is something that in the future we'll get to work on together, but just a way to pull up all those awesome scores that Sammy was talking about and letting the users know this is what's happening. We hear your feedback. We want to improve. This is what your peers are saying. I think even back to what Lisa was saying, it's all about the experience. So if you put something out there and then just kind of plug your ears, that's not going to help with the trust that you have, and that's not going to allow you to further your relationship with the users. So different things like that we like to showcase here. Awesome. So I'm going to attempt to jump back into my other share, and we can just talk about some next steps as well as some questions. Lisa, have I got the right screen now?
You do.
Awesome. So why don't we talk a little bit just about what's next? So the first 5 participants to register for the Essence of Experience, that 4-hour workshop that Lisa was alluding to before, will receive a complimentary seat. It'll be an instructor-led virtual classroom on January 7th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. You can register at this link here with the promo code Thirdera100. Lisa, did you have anything you wanted to add to that one? That's an awesome opportunity.
Well, other than it's being led by the amazing, incredible Rayanne Bruno, and for any of you who are familiar with the help desk or service desk worlds, which is where her origins are from. So, Rayanne really knocks it out of the park. And I have to say, for a 4-hour workshop, I am very proud of what we deliver, because if you go back to what I referred to as the XLA stack, with the O data and the X data, we pretty quickly get to that stack, and the exercises that we do in class help folks build versions of the XLA stack for themselves. So, well, of course, this is free, so really value for money and time. But in any event, for a 4-hour workshop, I think we really deliver a lot and really get people thinking about the importance of experience.
Awesome. No, thanks, Lisa. That's great. The next thing that we have for what's next, and then I'm going to pull up a couple questions, is just if you're interested in learning how your organization can benefit, request a demo at Thirdera. Reach out to any of us presenters. We would be more than happy to help out and provide more information. I think you can tell as we were going through each of these sections, we're all very passionate about what we were speaking to, and it's been such a fun experience getting to collaborate, because I'm so excited about the different stuff Lisa was saying and how I can incorporate it, and then Sammy's stuff and how we can join together. So there's going to be lots of great future opportunities. Somebody just asked a question, what is the free code? So I'm going to go back. It was Thirdera 100. There was also a question, Sammy, this one's for you. It says, can happy signals be used for ESM? Do you want to give that one an answer, Sammy?
Yeah, I can. So today seems to be that we are having a lot of technical problems. My camera is not anymore working, but you can hear me, so maybe that's enough. Yeah, our tool can be used for also enterprise service management areas, so HR, finance, and facilities, whatever. So that is possible as well. So not only IT, even though I was talking about 100% IT today.
Perfect. And someone else said, how does happy signals measure for lost time?
Yeah, sorry, that I was talking about, but I didn't tell how that it works. So we are asking that from end users, so they are estimating that time. So every time we are doing any surveys, we are asking them how much time did you lose because of this, or how much we are losing because of certain applications and so on. And maybe a bit negative sometimes, and some IT people are thinking that how can they answer how much time did you lose because of something. But that is the only way how we can get information about the productivity of end users when it comes to using support services. Sometimes the ticket might be open 5 days and they are not losing much. Sometimes every minute is really losing their time. They cannot get something done. And what I want to here still say about this one, employees love that question.
Mm-hmm.
What they are saying that finally IT is interested about my time, not only their own. So kind of, I think, Lisa, what you're talking about, that outcome and output and outcome, comparing that, if IT is only focused on what is happening inside IT, that question will help you to get people more motivated to even answer the survey. So sorry, long answer.
Well, I'm sure you guys know this old joke, but how long does it take to reboot your computer?
I don't know.
How far away is the coffee machine?
No, that's perfect. Awesome. I see one other question here. So I think it was for me. Are you including developers in the sessions or just feeding back? I love that question, and I refer to it almost too much that I hate the game of telephone. So much can get lost in translation. And I know in today's age with the amazing technology, we can record a lot of sessions, but I think there's so much value in getting to be there live and just hear it firsthand, because everyone's interpreting something differently. So as much as we can, we do really like to include the developers in the sessions so that they can kind of think about different ideas as well. I know at Thirdera Digital, we have a handful of developers that they'll tell you they wish they were designers. And I think we've got some designers that wish they had some more development skills. And I think that's such an asset, because if we can combine both of our strengths, and if a developer can make a suggestion on a design piece that makes the widget or makes the component work that much better, then we'll definitely incorporate that. So I love having everyone that I can in the sessions. I think sometimes there's specific sessions for specific people, but yeah, just keeping that feedback loop completely open and including everyone whenever we can. I think I got all the questions that were in the Q&A. I'm trying to go through the chat a little bit. Lisa or Sammy, did you see any other questions in the chat? I've really, like someone said, the math for a good experience is intuitive plus engaging equals adoption. I think that's a really good point. When we're brought in on clients' work, we're told like they really dislike this in the past, or as Sammy say, they hate the current experience. So how can you kind of change their mindset, and how can you think about that adoption? So I really agree with that comment. It needs to be intuitive and engaging, and it needs to work. And like I mentioned before, I think we're all human, and at the end of the day, if something doesn't work in the way it's intended, I think we just need to really listen and be empathetic and show that we're going to make changes and adapt to build that trust.
Well, I have a question for Sammy, if that's okay.
Of course.
So how long ago did you guys start Happy Signals?
7 years ago already.
And already, I know that did go quick, didn't it? So what was, prior to the pandemic, what was sort of the biggest change that you saw in terms of like the industry and folks' attitudes toward the importance of experience? Again, prior to the pandemic, where do you think it was going? And then I think, the follow-up question is going to be, how do you think the shift to work from home and everything else has really changed that?
I think it has been really interesting to follow the whole situation, and I think what we did in the beginning when the pandemic hit, we started to kind of offer free solution how our customers can really measure the remote working, and that how that changed quite rapidly. From the first, we hate it, and it's terrible to work like this, and we don't have the tools to situation, and currently there is 35 times more people saying that remote working is efficient than there is people saying it is inefficient. So I think that is something that we have learned in that the mindset of us people changed from being a bit like afraid of it to almost loving it. And I think that is what I'm now expecting to happen, is that now when enterprises are forcing people go back to the office, that will be making people leave the companies if they do that, because they have started to love the way of being really free in their how they arrange their timetables and so on. But I think this kind of whole experience movement already kind of thinking SLAs, and I think SLAs that started quite much before the COVID hit. And in a way, it's I think there is now built-in need for this one, because during the COVID time, decision making hasn't been like fast in some organizations, at least. Mm-hmm. Now I'm seeing, when you're looking at Gartner and when you're looking at other organizations that are estimating what is going to happen to experience management, they are thinking that it's going to grow very heavily in the coming years, and we are definitely seeing that in our organization, that there are more and more people asking that how to do the XLAs, how to really do it, what is needed. We want this change, we want to show value, we want to feel that we are doing something important. So a really big thing changing, and really wanting to be part of this and helping organizations to do it.
I think what you just said is so important. We want to feel like we're doing something important. And I know for me, pre-pandemic, you hear some sentences and in your brain, they're capitalized, right? So it was the war on talent was part of the reason that I saw it was really important to sort of get into the experience space and maybe help individuals and organizations. But now what I hear in caps all the time is the Great Resignation, which is, sort of the same as war on talent, but also very, very different, because I think there's a lot of easy things that I've seen some enterprises do that I wish other enterprises were doing that could stop for them the Great Resignation. It's really interesting. And so many organizations are just assigning folks back to work physically based on their role instead of their persona. So I think that's kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Lisa. And I just wanted to give a minute. There's a couple minutes left. If someone has a question that they want to just ask, feel free, or put your hand up and we'll grab you. But I did want to kind of relate back to Lisa, your slide. I was just trying to get the words exactly. People forget what you said, people forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And I think when we're talking about this pandemic and post-pandemic, and we're not quite through it, it's so hard virtually and like we are right now to be as engaging as you are in person. And the days of walking to the IT desk and having them walk you through it physically are no longer there. So I think it's so important to make sure that the feeling that people get in these different experiences, even if they struggle with a ticket or something like that, that they can still talk to a person, they can still have that back and forth. Like when we're designing portals, we always say, like, pretend you are at the coffee machine together and someone's looking for their pay stub. Could you speak to them and tell them where to find it, what color it is, or where it's located? So I think that whole, like, how you feel is still going to be so important, even more so when you're trying to do it all virtually and things can get lost in translation on Teams and Slack and emails. So just to be hyper aware of that. We just have 1 minute left, and I know someone's asking if we'll send a link out to the presentation. Pretty sure the presentation will be available after, so if you attended, you'll have a link to the recording. Like we mentioned, you can request a demo if you're interested to learn more. You can connect with us through social media. We're really excited. I know Lisa, Sammy, and I have a lot of great ideas for different demos and webinars in the future. So please make sure to follow us on the different accounts, and we'll be sure to broadcast what we're going to do next. I think there's a lot of exciting things in the future, and 2022 is going to be a really great year for everyone.
And I just wanted to clarify one super important thing, if I could, Bree.
Of course you can.
When I was 29, I thought 50 was old. Now it sounds young. There was some chatter about that.
I did see some of that. That's true. Awesome. Well, I want to be really respectful of everyone's time. I know these days meetings are back to back without the need to have to go from one office to the other. So thanks so much, Sammy, for your presentation and all of that great information. Lisa, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. So everyone have a great day and a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. Happy holidays even.
Yep.